of an IP analytics firm called Idea Banker, with the primary expertise in patents, trademark, and industrial design. He is specialized in insightful patent analytics, patent valuation, damage analysis, patent drafting, and ideation. Prasanna has also worked with companies like Wipro, SBI, Zing HR, to name a few. I welcome you, Mr. Prasanna, to this webinar.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Before we start with the webinar, a request to all the participants to please mute their microphones while the presentation is on. At the end of the talk, we will open the session for discussion. So you may either ask your questions directly by raising your hand using the Google class hand icon. You may also choose to post your questions in the chat box. At the end of the talk, we are also going to share a feedback link through which you will have the scope to share your feedback as well as give any additional questions or queries to our speakers. All right. So that's it with the introduction. I now request Ashutosh to take over the e-floor. We are eager to listen to you both.
Yeah, thanks, Pranay. Thanks for the warm introduction, and let's begin. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Just let me know if it is there.
Sure.
Can you see the slides?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great, perfect.
Can you go to the presentation? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So first of all, let me thank Goa University for providing us this platform to let you know about the innovations and how to protect innovations, inventions, how to identify and eventually commercialize those innovations that you are working with or you would want to work with, right? So we specifically thought about keeping this name for the talk. It's a step-by-step process, as you can see. You first have to identify, then you have to protect what you have invented, and then later on the last part is not just to protect but then extract value out of what you have protected. So let's look into it, and let's discuss the key topics. So the flow of the talk would be firstly the introduction to IP rights. What are different types of IPR? What is the term of IPR, the importance of it? What is the significance of IP into research? How does one identify that there is invention associated in the idea that they are thinking of? We will also see what are different criteria for patentabilities. What is the procedure for filing the patent application, and of course the commercialization mechanisms and some insight into how foreign universities has been able to really look into technology commercialization and IP commercialization. So with this agenda, I think I'll dive into the real presentation. So before we look at the IP, first let us understand what do you mean by innovation and what do you mean by an invention, right? So an invention per se is anything which is at a conceptualized stage or at an idea stage, which is unique, which has got some level of technical compatibility or technical advancements, and has got an industrial application, meaning which that it can be made into the industry. However, since it is at a idea stage, it is not yet developed into a product or a solution. So we will call it as invention there, and that's an idea. Right now, whether that invention is patentable or not, that's a separate matter. But then let's just first understand that it's an idea stage. The stuff that or the research that you're doing, it is at an idea stage. Now, how innovation helps you is it basically gives you different pointers to think on, so as to convert that idea into very unique and patentable subject matter. And then from that point onwards, with technological interventions, you can convert it into a product or a service, right? Meanwhile, protecting the IP that has been generated, right? So it's a vehicle, I would say. Innovation is a vehicle to convert your ideas into patentable inventions, right? And so if you see the flow, basically there's science, then there's technology, and there's product, right? So essentially you want to cross that bridge between science to technology. From technology, that technology you incorporate into the product, and then you offer it to the market, right? So that's where we feel that that bridge between the science and the converting of science into the technology, and from technology into the product, that needs to be bridged, right? So now, since we have understood where exactly innovation is going to help you into creating a lot of IPs, let's understand what are IP rights. So these are legally recognized exclusive rights to creations of minds, right? We discussed about inventions. Going forward, you might want to protect your designs of the product. You might want to name your company with a distinct name, which can be, going as a symbol, or just the name, and you may want to use it to be visible and be distinct, and make your identity into the market. So what are the ways by which you can protect these? So one way of looking at is intellectual property, and how do you protect it is what we are going to look into. How it essentially helps you is, it essentially helps you in earning recognition out in the society, or in the industry, or amongst your peers. Going forward, since we are talking about commercialization as well, you are able to essentially derive financial benefits out of whatever you have been able to invent or create, right? So one way of looking at it is, from finance point of view, it's an intangible asset. Now, something which is intangible, which cannot be felt, needs to be also protected. So IP rights, or I would say IP tools, are one of those prominent tools that you can use to protect your intangible assets. And of course, there are different laws which are in place, which are able to protect his, which lay down the infrastructure to protect his intellectual property with the help of law. Now, how and why it is important to have the laws in place, and why you need to protect and invent and innovate, is because we want to have an environment where you are essentially motivating other people also to innovate further, and you are also motivating them to be more creative, in a sense that you are creating an ecosystem of innovation, right? And that's what is required. Unless somebody sees very promising results of that somebody had converted their ideas into something which is patentable, no one really goes and approaches that kind of a pathway, right? So that's the brief about, and brief about the intellectual property rights and why these are essential. Now, there are different types of intellectual property depending on what exactly is that you have created. If you have created, let's say a research paper, you have written a research paper, it's into a text format, and then you can look at filing a copyright onto that, right? If you have developed a very nice name for the company that you wish to form, or you are in plans of forming, or if you want to give a name to the product, that is a trademark, right? The industrial design is just the outlook of the product that is in front of you. Patents, of course, is a very I would say sought after IP, and it essentially protects the inventions. The difference that we saw, um, uh, it essentially is given to the inventions that you have been able to create. Rest is geographical indication, trade secrets, and integrated circuit layouts. So geographical indication, in a very simple example I will tell, is I think in Goa there's this Feni is famous, right? So that's the product which has got an origin from a particular geographical place. So that's the link between that product and the product, from where it has been cultivated, or it has grown, right? Trade secret, we will look into, and there is also one more IP called integrated circuit layouts. So for the benefit of this seminar and looking at the audience, I'm not really looking at integrated circuit layouts as and geographical indication as the IP, but let's look at copyrights first. So as I told you, something which you have created, which is very unique and which you feel is very novel in terms of the work that you have put into. The example that I gave was a research paper, or it could be some of you would also be very passionate about photography or painting, right? Or some of you might also be interested into creating something which is a script for a play or a cinema, right? Or some of you might be musicians. So all of that work that you create, which is very original and is fixed in a tangible medium, needs to be filed as a copyright. Right. So the examples which I've listed is literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works. Right. So for all of these, you cannot say that I want to file a patent for the literary work that I've done. Right. It essentially needs to be protected with the help of the copyright law. Now, it is the very fine thing about copyrights is that it is registration of it is automatic. The moment you create it, it is in your name only. But registration is of copyright is required when you are representing something in the court of law. Like you want to prove your ownership onto the copyright. Somebody else is already copied it and then he is trying to make money out of it. Right? So in such disputes of ownership, it is always preferred that you have a registration of a copyright. This is about copyrights. The very requisite for copyright to have is that it should be original and it should be fixed in a tangible medium. Right. Going forward, we'll look at trademarks. So these are, as you are seeing the image, these are distinctive signs. And why are they used is so as to differentiate your own product or company from similar goods and service providers, right? So how do you do it is either you use one or a combination of words or letters and numerals. Like we have an example of IBM or Wipro as the words and letters that they have put into, right? You can also make use of some drawings or symbols or three-dimensional signs to effectively say that this is my identity out in the market or in the commercial space. You can also look at audible signs, right? Like you must be aware of the Intel's famous sound that comes, or even 20th Century Fox has got its own audible sign. The moment it plays, you are able to recognize quickly that, oh, this is that brand. Right? Very recently, people have also filed trademarks for fragrances, which is a very unique type of trademark, I would say. But if it is very distinct fragrance that you are getting out of it, that can also be protected under trademarks. And there are some colors that you can use as distinguishing features, right? So if I tell you that name a pizza company which has got blue and red color into its trademark, immediately the name that comes in front of you is Domino's. Or if I tell you that name a company which uses just the red color into their logo, Pizza Hut is the name that comes to your mind. But essentially, you don't confuse with Pizza Hut and KFC, right? Because their identity is distinct there. So that's about trademarks. Now, coming to the point of the very much sought after intellectual property, which is patents. I'll spend a little bit more time onto this because that's where I think it's very important for all of us to look at it. So just first look at the definition of patents. So it's a property right granted by the government to an inventor to exclude others from making, using, offering for sale, or selling the invention or importing the invention for a limited period of time, which is essentially applicable from the date of filing, right? But what you have to do in order to get a patent, you have to do a public disclosure first. Only then all of these things can be enforced. Now, why are you wanting to file a patent is for the simple reason that you don't want to let anybody copy what you have created as a technological advancement, right? So, and the very fine thing about patents is that it is granted for inventions. Now, we saw the difference between innovation and invention. The moment you say that it's an invention, it is the Patent Act says that it is unique. That means it is novel. It has got industrial application and it has got technical improvements, or I would say non-obviousness or inventive step into it, which is going an extra mile from the whatever is available in the public domain, right? So essentially your invention is a little bit better, or let's say a little bit faster, or even cheaper. So it's not only about technological improvements or technological advancements that are looked into. uh, Patent Act also says that if it is commercially feasible or economically beneficial for you to make that product, use that product, then also the non-obviousness can be established. Now, the patent is a territorial right. So, which means that a patent filed and granted in India may not be applicable or may not be considered as to be filed and granted in any other country in the world, right? So, it is very, very territorial in nature. You have to file in India in order to get establish the priority, and then you have to seek protection in different multiple countries in order to enforce your rights in that particular invention in that particular country, right? Similarly, a patent filed and granted in US may not be considered as filed and granted in India. The person who has filed it in US has to file it in India as well, right? And there are different mechanisms by which it could be done. Um, Now coming to the point of negative right, it is considered to be a negative right because it is excluding others from practicing your invention without your consent, basically, right? So it establishes that this is my invention, this is my boundary in my invention, and this is how I am able to protect it and perform it also, right? uh, the the patent is for a limited period of time. It is 20 years from the date of filing, and that's the reason why priority date in patent procedures is of utmost importance. And of course, it's a right where the inventor can assert his rights, her rights against the infringer from the date of publication. So we will see what all steps are involved in the patent prosecution, essentially. Uh, okay, now, as I told you, an invention is just an idea. Now, in order to file a patent for it, you have to look at whether it is patentable or not, and only then the patent can be filed on that particular invention. So, what are patentability criteria in that case? So, we follow something called as the Nunn's test. So, Nunn standing for N stands for, as I told you, is novelty. Second is utility, and third is non-obviousness, which is also called as inventive step. And there are certain statutory patentable invention requirements in the Patents Act under Section 3 and 4, which talks about what are not inventions, basically, right? So that is itself gives us a brief idea about if an idea is really going to be patentable or not, right? So if you follow these three criteria, so novelty means that something which is very unique in nature, nobody has ever done it before, uh, uh, meaning that there is no public document available in terms of patent literature or non-patent literature, which is talking about the similar content that or the similar technology that you are trying to develop. Utility means, as I told you, it's an industrial application. So anything which can be converted or made essentially into the industry is considered an industrial application. So now coming to the very crucial point of non-obviousness or inventive step, I would say, is that what is your difference that you have been able to make? So as we call it, the delta. Okay, so there is, let's say, there is your invention and there are certain set of documents. One is a research article and there are two patent applications that are filed. One is filed in Japan and one is filed in US. right? And they are being getting cited as the prior art for your technology. Now, what are the ways by which you can ascertain that your invention is technologically improved? Is by way of looking at it in a very subjective way. And that is to say that is every, so essentially in patent documents, there is something enforceable component which that is called as claims. So you have to go step by step and you have to look at it from claim by claim, and you have to make an analysis of like whether that first claim is similar, second claim is similar. Essentially, in any patent, the first claim is usually considered as to be the novel and non-obvious claim in a patent document, right? So in order to establish that, even if your product or even if your technology is able to yield the product, let's say with 5% of enhanced efficacy, right? Then also it can be considered as non-obvious or inventive over the cited prior arts. Or let's say your product is performing very well, like the earlier products, they are giving maybe 40% of yield. But when your processes and your product is implemented, the yield essentially has increased to 50% or 60%. In that case, you can establish that it is it is not very obvious to the people who are skilled in that art. So that is all about the patentability criteria. Now, moving on to how to identify inventions in your idea. When you look at this, do you think that certain product can be made out of this particular Coquelabur seed that is there? But when this guy saw this particular seed, he essentially made something like this. And if I may ask, and if I may, question the audience about, do you know what this product is? If I can have some answers quickly in 20 seconds or so. Can I have some answers, please? Okay, so this essentially is a hook and loop fastener patent, which is nothing but a Velcro patent, basically. And this very gentleman, one fine day, he was a very enthusiastic trekker. So he had gone for a trek along with his dog, and these seeds were intertwined into the dog's fur, and that's how he got an idea that, oh, this is something which can be used as fasteners, right? Or this could be having a potential application as the fastener, right? Now, if you say that he was the subject matter expert, no, he was not. He was a trained electrical engineer, Swiss electrical engineer, and there is no connection at all, right? So, but then first of all, the thing is that you have to first have an idea, and then you have to narrow it down to identifying inventions. And that's what we have been doing from last 15 odd years, that you have an idea, you come to us, and then when we sit across, we essentially identify invention which is patentable in your idea, right? So this was just an example that how one can spot inventions in a given idea, right? Now, coming to the patent prosecution part, so it essentially starts from filing. As I told you, you have to first disclose it with the government, right? And of course, there are certain steps involved. There is a publication that happens. Then there's something called as request for examination that you have to file. Then the first examination report gets issued. You have to respond to that, and in this very first examination report only, you have to establish that where exactly is the technological advancements that you have done. Of course, the patent application or the patent document that you file equally needs to replicate that part. But patent office conducts its own examination of the patent application, even though you have conducted a very thorough assessment earlier, right? And then depending on the nature of your response, the patent is either granted or it is refused, right? So there is a peculiar timeline that follows. One very interesting thing that very recently happened is that patent office reduced the filing fees for educational institutions and universities. to encourage the commercialization of the new technologies. Meaning which that earlier, because of the higher fees, universities and institutions were shying away from the expenses, and that was prominently identified, and the recent amendments have taken place, right? Uh, so this is about this is about patents. Now, if we quickly can move on to industrial designs, as I told you, industrial designs is just the outlook of the of any product, which is improved aesthetically, ergonomically, and from usability point of view. Now, why would one want to invest into industrial designs? A product is a product. It could be in a square shaped box or it could be in a round shaped box, right? But then the moment you change the design of the product, you give some rounded edges, it looks attractive, right? And essentially it increases the value of the product, right? So it could be anything, and it could be the shape of the goods also, it could be the ornamental designs also, it could be the configuration in which the buttons are placed onto a particular device. It could be some pattern that you may like onto a device which attracts you. It could be the color combination that is used onto the designs. So it's just that. So to ease the understanding, I've given you the evolution of the earpods and AirPods, right? So the earlier wired ones were drastically changed in order to, and if you see, it has gone from a bulky to a very compact kind of a thing, and that's where people are ready to pay whatever money is being asked for that particular airport, right? So that's all about it. Let's quickly look into the next IP, which is a trade secret. So now, trade secret is one thing which is essentially needs to be kept confidential and secret. And by it being a secret, it needs to have some level of commercial value as well. It's not that you have kept it secret and it is secret till your life, and then you have not extracted value out of it. When it is a trade secret, it needs to have certain value associated with it. And the examples that I've cited, they have been able to really make use of it. So let it be KFC's fried chicken recipe, or Coca-Cola's formula for how do they make it, or Listerine formulations onto the dental cleaning formulation, or even the Google's algorithm. So the Google's algorithm is like whatever you put into Google, it gives you the nearest and the very accurate results within seconds. And if you might have observed, Google also give in what time it reverted with the search, right? So that's the algorithm which they have kept as a trade secret. Now, we'll quickly look into the term of the intellectual property rights. So we saw copyrights, patents, industrial designs, and trademarks, right? So the copyright, it is creator's life plus 60 years. You can have the rights enforced onto that copyright. For patents, as I told you, it is 20 years from the date of filing. For industrial designs, it's 10 years, and it can be renewed for 5 years. Trademarks also, it is 10 years and can be further renewed for 10 years. Geographical indications, we did not cover since it was not relevant, but then the lifetime of the geographical indication is also 10 years plus next 10 years. In all of these cases, patents cannot be renewed at any given point of time, because it is one-time right that you have been given. But there are ways by which you can modify that particular invention or that technology in order to create more patents around that certain technology. Now we have been looking at it, like what's the importance? Why do you want to do it? First of all, it enables you to restrict competition, right? It makes sure that you are serious about what you are inventing, what you are developing. You are serious about your business, and then you have taken enough efforts into making your presence felt in the market. When you're approaching an investor, especially, this is very, very relevant when it comes to startups. Investors nowadays are also very prominently asking that what is the IP portfolio that you have? What is the IP that you have been able to protect? What is the technology that you are saying that your business is based on? Right? It also gives you an upper hand at technology commercialization. So with what we are going to see in the coming slides. It is a differentiator with unique technology offering whenever you are entering into any commercialization kind of a scenario. Of course, it gives you recognition amongst peers in industry. And essentially, on top of it, the point that is down below, it is essentially a platform for further technology development, because what you have invented, after a certain period of time of 18 months, it gets published, right? And that's the point. From that onward, you are able to see what is the recent technological development that has happened. And if you want to really, really develop something which is better than that, you can use that information, patent information, and then build your own product, which is far more better, faster, and cheaper than the existing products that are there. So I've given some facts and figures here. I think I'll rush by it, but the only thing I wanted to highlight is that India's research publication trend in 2018, there were close to 171,879 research articles that were published. And if you look at the patents filed by India in the year 2018 is just 16,000. So if you can see the vast difference between the research publications going out, which may be, I don't know, which may be patentable, but have not been filed for a patent application. So we are trying to, educate and we make people aware about this fact, and then, we are promoting them to, or motivating them to file patent applications also. I think that's my last slide. I'll ask my colleague to take over. Prasanna, if you could, take over from here. I'll stop presenting.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh.
Yeah. Floor is yours, Prasanna.
Easier. If anybody has questions, shall we take it now or shall we take it after the session?
We shall take it after the session. Till then, they can put it in the chat box. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it has come.
It has come, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about commercialization, because I think this is one of the most pressing questions in the entire field of intellectual property. Okay, so there is this famous painting of from the Homer's Iliad. This is one of the great fighters named Achilles. Okay, we know it as Achilles' heel also. In the Trojan War, is well known for his fighting in his Trojan War. So what happens is his mother, basically, when he was born, his mother dips him into one of the river, a river named Styx. So he becomes, he cannot be defeated. He becomes very, very strong. But the mother holds him by his foot and then dips him. Except that part, everything else becomes, very, very strong. And that little part, of his foot, eventually turns out to be very, very fatal for him, and that is what we read in the Homer's Iliad. The same is with commercialization of intellectual property. See, we are spending a lot of time in understanding what is IP, how to do it. Then there is a lot of question on how then drafting is being done, and then prosecution and everything else. But we always forget what is that we are trying to do and why are we trying to do. There could be a lot of objectives as to why we are trying to do. Right. One of the things is, of course, we want a lot of patents. There is university ranking, there is NIRF ranking, and other things which are there. We are doing it. But let's look at commercialization as a very important aspect. This actually differs from how we look at it and how the rest of the world looks at it. Okay. Okay. So let us look at the journey that it took for an airline company. Is around 64 years to get the first 50 million users. Automobile took 62, the telephone took 50, and if we just go on, we'll realize even the ATM machine took 18 years. Whereas today's Pokemon has taken just 19 days to reach the 50 million users. The amount of time it has taken has just shortened down. So that tells us that the need and the speed at which the innovations are happening is way too high, because the three primary fundamental aspects of business have been the speed, scale, and value. So if you want to scale, this picture clearly tells us that, the scale is, the market is ready to give you the scale that it needs, the speed at which it can actually grow. The only thing we need to focus on, what is the value derivations that we are looking at in terms of the kind of ideas and innovations that we are looking at. Okay. First of all, everybody gets ideas. Ideas are not inventions. Inventions are not products. This is very, very important to understand why inventions are not product, and I will cover that in one of the slides as to why inventions are not products. If most of the people come up and say that, this has not been done before. If it has not been done before, well and fine. My colleague will say that it is patentable and other things, but we may not necessarily find it a useful invention. If it is a useful invention, the market is ready to give you the scale, and that is where the successful product is being created. If it is successful, if it is useful, then rest of the parameters do come in, like marketing, sales, how do you pitch it, and other things, and eventually your product will be sold. Okay, whatever is being said and done, as far as the intellectual property is concerned, it is necessary that it should basically follow the fundamental law of the land. So does the Patent Act actually allow you to commercialize it? The answer is yes. In section 83, please do not read the entire slide, only the red ones we can read it. They're basically talking about commercializing it without undue delay. They want it to be done as quickly as possible. The law says in point number 3, you'll realize it is transfer and dissemination of technology. So it is talking about technology transfer. Not only in India, in the point number 5, you can see it is talking about international transfer of technology in point number 5. Then we go to point number 6. We are talking about reasonably affordable prices at which the patents are to be done. Okay, and what is reasonable, what is fair, and all is, we will leave it to the valuation, and we will leave it to the Supreme Court to kindly look into that. Okay, what are the types of commercializations that we are looking at? We are looking at assignments, we are looking at licensing, we are looking at joint venture and spin-off. I will explain them in detail, but these are the primary ways through which you can commercialize. The word assignment also means making a sale out of it. Okay, then there is a licensing, then there is exclusive, non-exclusive options, and then there is joint venture and spin-off, right? Okay. So let us understand what is technology transfer. I think this is the most commonly used in all the organizations and all the universities and everywhere else. There is no definition per se as to what is transfer of technology as per what is technology per se, right? So the transfer of technology really means transfer of knowledge. Now the transfer doesn't mean movement or delivery. Okay. And transfer basically means the use of technology. So they are basically using the word called use of technology. Okay, so this is where we can actually deconstruct the entire technology transfer. That one, it doesn't have any of the definitions. Okay, this is what I call technology. This is what we call technology. It doesn't have a definition. Okay, and the transfer of technology really means transfer of knowledge. Okay, then there is transfer does not mean the movement or delivery, and transfer means use of technology. This is very important to understand in terms of how we look at technology transfer. Okay, we will also see how will it be in the material transfer agreements and other things when we draft those things. Okay, my friend has covered these things. What are the inventions, innovations, where do designs, and how does diffusion of technology actually come up and play a role? Okay, first of all, one of the questions that arises is, okay, I have a technology, why isn't it getting commercialized? Okay, can I use it in different ways? Let us take a simple example in this case. See, this is a laser machine which has been there in 1960s. Okay, from the same technology and understanding of the laser, basically the mouse that we are having, the laser pointed mouses have come, and today we see the same technology. When we tweak it around, we are able to create the engravings on these wooden engravings and marble engravings and other things being used by laser. So that tells us that it is not the technology per se that is getting transferred or utilized, but it's the knowledge of how an energy particle could be utilized or a laser could be used for making up a product and other things. Okay, so let me simplify commercialization. Okay, Goa is one of the most sorted places as far as travelers are concerned. Okay, so let me simplify commercialization in as simple words as I can. See, commercialization per se, intellectual property rights follows the same laws which are being followed for tangible properties. Okay, so let us take an example. This is one of the aerial landscape view of Panjim. Okay, Panjim is considered to be one of the costliest areas on this. This is so. It is so. That is what I have heard. Now let us take an example to understand our commercialization of our product with by drawing an analogy from this. Okay, so let us assume I have a property in one of the areas in Panjim. Okay, so the question arises, what shall I do with the property? So my friend comes up and says, hey, why don't you construct some hostel and why don't you give it to people and the people can use it and you will earn some money. So after that, one of my other friend comes up and says, hey, how about you create a hotel out of it because a lot of travelers do come up. Why don't you make a hotel out of it? Then the other friend comes up and says, nice property and everything else. Why don't you create a function hall out of it because people to celebrate their, convention hall kind of a thing. People will celebrate their birthdays, to their marriages and, everything else, corporate events and everything else. Maybe you can earn a lot of money because it's a 365 days event, you can make a lot of money. One of my other friend comes up and says, hey, how about you make a big sports complex out of it? Other friend comes up and says, interesting. How about you give this property to one of the builders? He will construct 4 floors and he will construct 4 more floors. 4 you can keep it and 4 he will sell it. Okay, so if you are in the business, you'll understand that the depreciation value of a property too happens as it happens in appreciation also. Okay, so one of the questions that arises is which one of these decisions is the best decision with my property. The same logic applies to your intellectual property also, be it your patents or be it your other things. Shall I license it to somebody so that somebody else uses it? I make money out of it. Okay, I'll give exclusive to somebody, only they can use it. That's called an exclusive license, how you do it. You do a non-exclusive license like tenancy agreements. Okay, I'm giving you a right to utilize it, but I'm not giving you the transfer of property of rights over it. Okay, then there is a question of what if I want to make an outright sale out of it? Okay, what we call an assignment rights, or you're making an outright sale out of it, right? Maybe you can earn money out of it while licensing and other things, what we call it as earning from royalties and other things. Okay, then there is a spin-off. Okay, so the spin-off was between my property and let us say State Bank of India. They want to put up their ATM machines. I want to construct it, and the money and everything will be shared. And I'm giving them for 10 years for taking the place, and I also earn money, and they're giving me cheaper loans. Possible, right? So what is that we are looking at? So basically, your intellectual property behaves in a similar way when we are looking at commercialization of these things. If I ask you which one of the decisions or which of my friends A, B, C, D, E, who gave me the best decision? Now this question is very weird because it depends when do I want money, what kind of money do I want, and what do I want to do with the money. Imagine, my younger brother comes up and he says, okay, I want to go to Harvard University and I want to study, I want 2 crore rupees. Maybe because the money is required in less than 1 or 2 months, I think the best decision at that point of time will be to make an outright sale. Imagine I want to make a regular income out of it or something else. Then I think leasing is a better decision out of it. So it also depends upon the kind of command and control I have over the technology. And secondly, also in the space of landscape. I don't know, maybe just beside my house, there is a graveyard coming up. All of a sudden, the entire value of the property goes down, right? So if there is a large cineplex coming up or something else coming up, the value of my price increases. Why am I showing this landscape? Is because in patent also there is something called an IP, there is something called a patent landscape. Assume all these buildings which you are looking at are also patents on this. Okay, a lot of IP which have been generated by a lot of companies and other things. Now the question arises, people come up with one single patent and they say, hey, I want to commercialize it. Okay, you want to commercialize it, but did you look at the landscape where you're sitting at? Maybe you're just too small, sitting somewhere and feeling that it's too valuable. Okay. Maybe if you do not utilize your patent for 3 years or so, the other party can actually revoke your patent, stating that misuse of monopoly rights that can happen, right? Secondly, has there been a continuous improvement over your land or not? Now imagine somebody trespasses over your land and you do not come to know. That's what we call it as patent watch. Somebody tries to infringe over your property and tries to build something over it. That's what happens in normal properties. People try to occupy your land and other things, right? So you need to do your fencing and other things. So the question is, how do I look at my property is a primary way of looking at how I look at my innovations also. Maybe the market is too crowded. You don't know whether you're into a red market or a blue market, right? Blue ocean. So this becomes primarily very, very important for us to understand for commercialization. Why is it important to look at a larger picture rather than taking 1 or 2 or 3 few patents and then saying I want it to be commercialized and it fails? And we have seen it in the context of the other universities, foreign universities, as to why they have been more successful. Because they have been following a theme. Okay, my university is going to work on only A, B, C, D areas. It's not going to work on other things. And they have crowded the entire landscape with the number of patents that they have filed, and they're able to reap the benefits. Okay, making patents out of the blue is a pure matter of luck. Imagine my friend comes up and says that, okay, you build a hotel out of it. And I realize that now my land is into one of those narrow lanes in one of the costliest areas where there is no parking possible. There is no sunlight possible. Do you think in spite of having a property in one of the prime areas, I will be able to earn money? The answer is no, I won't be able to make money, right? Okay, so other question arises is how long does it take to take an idea to the market? Okay. This is in general the rule of market thumb, the thumb rule, as to how long does it take. It takes around 48 months, and the different steps are being followed at each month as to to make a commercially successful product. And imagine by the time you come up with a product, there is one more product already being started, say about 10 months prior to your initial start line. Then all of a sudden you realize that somebody else is sitting there. So it is necessary for you to file the patents the moment you get your idea, and try to prove that your idea is at least the nuts and bolts and the main parts of it, so that the claim constructions could be done for your patents, and then you start rest of the works for your entire patents, right? Okay, so what is the cost for taking a product till the market? See, this is a very difficult question to answer. One, it depends upon the kind of team we are looking at, kind of technology that we are looking at, and the kind of growth that you are looking at, right? So it becomes very, very important. If you want to cut down your cost, do not go by only one single patent, okay? Try to acquire as much as land possible, as much as space in the white space that is available in your entire landscape, patent landscape. Then what happens is you will have a better leverage, stating that in this given area I have 15-20 properties, rather than saying I just have one property. Maybe I can club all the 15 properties and sell it at a much higher rate, right? That becomes much more easier in terms of how do you actually leverage, because the failure rate is also one of the things that we do not consider. So that makes it much more easier for you to make a sale. So we do understand that there is a value of death that happens. So once you develop a product after 12 months, then your development phase and everything else starts. That is the stage you do not know what to do next. Okay, maybe you'll get some of the grants, your fundings and everything else, and they dry up. Now the question is, oh, what shall I do? This is a stage when we actually start understanding that what should I do? Should I sell off my land, or what should I do? How should I look at my given patent? Because there's a value of death, and that can only be held up by angel investors. And then comes up, once it has been successful, only then the VC investors and everything else comes up. That is when the early investors and the S-curve analysis and everything else starts over it. But how do you cross over the value of death? Primarily, apart from angel investors are primarily interested, can you really save their money? and a single patent cannot really save it. You need to build your own portfolio. Until and unless universities have their own portfolios, it becomes very, very difficult for them to go over and make a sale and convince people to invest a lot of money. This is the kind of money we're talking about, private investors coming in and putting their money, and that is where patent starts really seeing its life. This is one of the common examples we see. If you see on the air vent, there is one of the mobile holder. See, this guy purchased that mobile holder, but after that he realized that it is too bulky. My phone is too bulky and it cannot really fit into that. Even it can fit, it will just fall down, right? Then he realizes that I need to buy the second mobile holder while driving, because I want it on my eye level while driving it. So this tells us that while product development and even while looking at in terms of patents, it is very, very clear as to why patents are not being successful in terms, because people do not understand the various facets of our product design, product development, and how innovation really happens. They make a product and they come up and say, hey, I want to sell it. I want money. I get great idea. I wrote a lot of papers on this. Everything is possible. Now let's do it. Once it hits the market and it's failing, right? So this is something to be considered. This is one of the common examples that I can give you that we see whenever I travel by Uber or Ola. So what are the timelines for a given product? Okay, so this is one of the patents, which is basically a rod, and this actually sprays a jet of water. So when the question arises, is it of any use? Is it worth spending your time and money in selling it? Okay, this tells us that it has been invented by one of the inventor called Surya Raghu, and the patent was issued in 2001. So the question arises, is it of any use for us? So usually it comes up like, okay, so there is a rod kind of a thing, and this, we can see an oscillating water coming out of it. What is the use of such kind of a thing? Maybe it doesn't look like it's useful, right? But remember, this is the technology for wiper that we use it on cars. Okay, till date, it did not get replaced, though the designs have been changing, but per se, the technology did not change of the entire thing. So it tells us very importantly as to how do we look at where to utilize our technologies in the entire industry. Your technology could be used in some other industry. We never look at it, because most of the departments, most of the government organizations and non-government organizations, companies and everything work in silos. Within the organization, they work in silos in their own departments, and the researchers work in their own sub-silos of the entire thing, and it becomes way too difficult to commercialize it. This is one of the pitfalls that needs to be looked in. But look how the same Indians went abroad and they did that. So there is a question arises, how do I look at the technology development when we look at it in the TRL, technology readiness levels? How do we look at it, and how long does it take, and what are we supposed to do in these conditions? So this slide basically tells us as to how we need to go about in terms of from your invention, from your idea to your product, how did it happen and everything else, from TRL 1 to how did it reach TRL 8 and 9, and investors are interested in product which is TRL 7 or 8 and above. That is what they're invested, at least TRL 7. Okay, so when we look at this patent, it doesn't look like any of those patents, which would make sense. But eventually, this is the product. On the right side, we can see that it's an egg holder, egg crate holder, which is there, and it's still late. The design hasn't changed, right? It is still very valuable. And can anybody tell me what would this invention be?
Listen, I think your screen stopped.
Screen stopped. Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll have to share it again. Also, I would want audience to look at how Velcro has expanded over these years.
Yes.
From a very small invention, they are like a multi-million dollar company right now, having offices in different countries. So it is all about taking your idea seriously and developing into.
Is it visible now?
Yeah, it is visible. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. So when we look at this technology, we are like, okay, yeah, maybe in 1964, because the date is very clear on the patent. This is an invention for the bubble wrap. Okay, till date it has not changed. Okay, these are the people who did that, and it's not that they try to do anything, unbelievable, but they try to solve the problem which is at a larger scale, and hence they have been very, very valuable. And till date they are getting their royalties and other things that they have been developing. And this is
Prasanna,
about
just
yes.
go in the PPT mode. I mean the presentation mode. No,
Is it not in the presentation mode?
no.
Is it?
It's coming.
Because
No, it's not yet. Now it stopped sharing.
okay, because I stopped it.
Okay.
How did it stop all of a sudden? Is it fine now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, yeah. So when we look at one of the inventions, Lippmann was the one who came up with pencil. Can anybody tell me what did the other guy, the chubby white guy, came up with? His invention? His invention is basically in the picture itself. The invention is of the credit card. The famous Indian who actually, G.D. Naidu, was the one who actually came up with this very idea, the Edison of automotive industry, basically came up with the concept of the motorcycle in those years. That is G.D. Naidu.
No, not visible, Prasanna.
Not visible,
I mean we can see the slide, but not the PowerPoint presentations. Slideshow mode.
but it is in the slideshow mode.
Or is it?
Yeah,
Then
it's
you might want to share the slideshow screen.
Full screen, full screen. It is not full screen.
It is on full screen in mine till now. Okay, let me try the other method. Is it fine now?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is about G.D. Naidu, who's the guy who came up with his motorcycle, and you know how famous his invention had been. Okay, what are the path? What are the steps basically are used for taking aspects of taking invention to a product? Is about technology development. Is about securing your intellectual property. Third is manufacturing process and development. Third is financials are very, very important. The fifth is the business development. Sixth is, how do you create a spin-off? What are the kind of equity distribution and other things that happen? How do you look at it, right? So these are one of the steps that are essential in this entire process. I'll give you a reason. One of the reasons why patents are not getting commercialized. This is one of the complaints that we get as far as organizations are concerned. So the Pastor's Quadrant basically gives us the answer for this important question. Why only some are getting, why are others not getting, why are institutions like IITs and other things, the famous ones are getting all the money and funding and everything else, why are we getting it apart from the government grants and everything else, why are we not being so successful? So this quadrant basically gives us an entire idea of this. Okay, and let us look at the first quadrant, that is Bose-Einstein quadrant. Here, if the knowledge is too high, it's too high of its in its research input and other things, but it's too low on its immediate application, like Bohr's application or Einstein's applications have been something that is pure research. They do not take into consideration of any practical utility of these things. Okay, so that is why the commercialization in that very quadrant is just too low. And that's where most of the research papers and other things and everything else comes up. And a lot of people file a lot of patents on these areas, but they do not realize it, what quadrant are they actually fitting into. And that's where the entire problem arises. Let's look at the other quadrant of it, the pastures quadrant. Here it is use inspired basic research to address important practical questions. Okay, here it is high theory and high practice in its area. So we see that the Lewis Pastures and Edison basically come and fit into these areas. The application part of it. That is why their patents have been more successful rather than other things. Then we have one of the quadrant called as Edison quadrant. It is pure applied research. It's low in theory, but it's very high in its practice. That's where the Edison quadrant has all his inventions and everything. Most of the inventions of GE basically fall into these quadrants. Okay, most of the biological sciences, chemical sciences, and other things, most of the pure basic research primarily falls in the Bose Einstein quadrant, and that is where, though in spite of patents, they have not been very successful in its applications. Then there is something called low theory, low practice. Okay, this is where most of the tinkering happens. Okay, this is where organizations need to understand how to capture these ideas and then convert into Pastures quadrant or Edison's quadrant, so that there's a lot of money that comes up and eventually commercialization becomes much easier. So the problem is not in the patents. The problem is in how do we approach the given research and how are we looking for the market? Are we looking in terms of research, or are we looking in terms of the market and everything else? So this is a traditional approach that we use, that we discover something else, then we determine what are the properties of this, and then we identify the potential value applications of its value. Then we look for the commercialization and everything else. So if it starts from a research question and then it goes in a traditional approach, it becomes very, very difficult to actually make a sale of the products. Okay, and we commercialize the entire thing. But when we look at a modern approach, we are looking from the needs, problems, and challenges of the end user. That's what we call it the use case and the test case. Then it becomes, then you design it, then you actually solve the problems, and then you actually end up at a better products. The products which the market actually needs. Okay, that's as per the time and everything else. Okay, in the real estate parlance, imagine your property lies at the corner property. Nobody is going to waste that opportunity, right? So it depends upon where are we going to place our entire patent in terms of looking at the entire landscape in your entire area, in your entire field, looking at your competitors and everything else as to where do we fall. So let's look at valuation, because it's a very tricky part of it. I'm not going into calculations and other part. I'm going to just give you the basic part of it as to how we look at valuations. Why do we do valuations? Primarily because you want to extract as much value as possible from the given inventions, right? And that is why we do valuations. Okay, so how do I look at it in terms of valuation? How do I make it in an organization? How do I find something is valuable, right? First of all, it is very, very important to list the entire intangibles available in your entire organization, and then try to link it with the economic or strategic benefits. If this very link is missing, it becomes impossible to go ahead in commercializing your patents. Okay, then you add it to a list and you complete the number of patents. You'll realize that it's not just the patent, it's also the design patents. It's not just one or two inventors, it's group of inventors come together. A lot of inventions, patents come together for solving a given problem. That can actually create an entire package, entire bouquet of things that becomes much more easier to commercialize it, right? It's like you have a property, the property is also good, the property is clean, the property is well protected, your documents are fine, everything else is fine. Now a lot of people are interested in your property along with their property to be sold. All of a sudden you realize that a large builder is interested in buying your property, right? So that's how exactly it works. Okay, then if there are any quick fixes that are to be done, you do a lot of quick fixing of these things, maybe in terms of prosecution and other things that you look at it. Then the question of how do I basically look at activating my entire commercialization activities, and whatever you have collected in your list, now you prune it, either you enhance it, you monetize it, or you mitigate the risk in IP. And this is exactly how commercialization steps actually follow. It's not a very linear method that follows in like selling and sales and marketing and other things. It's a very non-linear in its structure. But if I had to still put it in buckets, this is how it would be. how we'll be looking at it. This is the most common dosa that is available in all the university hostels and other things, because it's Goa University. I thought, universities usually have this kind of dosa and other things. If I ask you what would be the value of this dosa, people might come up and say, okay, it might be 10, 15, 20 or 30 rupees. If I ask you what would be the cost of this dosa is with, like silver foil, it has a gold foil. If I ask you what would be the cost of this one, a lot of people will come up and say maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500 or something else, depending upon the quality of the gold and other things. But the value also lies on how many people in my entire city are crazy about this dosa, right? It also depends upon does it have a medical benefit, or is it vanity, or is it going to really spoil my health, or is it just that I just want to have it, right? Okay, let's try, because we all have been trying something or the other. I just want to try it. What is that we are looking at it, and that's very important. So that can give you a variability of this dosa for somewhere around 500 rupees to say around 2,000 rupees to 2,500 rupees. There's a real dosa available in Bangalore for say around 1,800 rupees. Okay, so at times we do understand that how valuation actually works. There are a lot of parameters. There are intrinsic vectors that work out, there are internal vectors, there are external vectors that work on determining how the entire valuation happens, whether it is quantitative, whether it is qualitative methods and other things, right? So the simple product can tell you. Same as with your patent also. Where do I place it in the entire map of my landscape, and how do I look at it, whether it is well protected, do I do patent validation, where I do invalidation, where I do freedom to operate, what am I looking at, and how are these things actually work out. So when we look at IP valuation, we look at what is that we are trying to do, why are we trying to evaluate it is very, very important. Do I want to make money? Do I want to leverage the technology so that I can build more out of it? Am I looking for a research collaboration so that my technology becomes more valuable and my researchers can actually leverage other research areas available in the private sector? Or there is something else coming up, there is a government tender that is coming up and you want to be a participant, like how IIIT does it, and so you want to have a lot of know-how and a lot of other things. Why do you want to do it is very, very important. The question is, how do you do your valuation? It could be in the form of your quantitative approach and also in terms of your qualitative approach, right? So quantity is primarily how do we look at in terms of quantity, money, more, right? So in terms of, we have three methods, the famous methods, which is basically called the cost-based approach, which tells you what is the cost that I need to put in to build the exact same technology, is a cost-based approach. If I have to say, okay, I have to make a certain product which is already there in the market, patent, if I had to create a similar one, how much will it cost me? It cost me 1,000 rupees, so value is say around 1,000 rupees, right? Second is the income-based approach. In an income-based approach, we are looking at how much money can I actually generate from this given property. It actually tells you about the income-based approach. How much income can I get at its future value? How much can I derive out of it? Then there is something called as a market-based approach. What are the similar products available in the market? If they are available at certain cost, we take certain multiples out of it called the revenue multiples and other things. Then we do look at it, the market-based methods, and try to evaluate the entire intellectual property which is available. Then there is a universities. What is the university's path to generally commercialize it? They basically take a 8-step approach of research. Then there is an invention disclosure. Then there is an assessment, how worth it, how good my draftsman is, what is the kind of drafting that happens. Then we get into patenting. Then we start scouting for partners and collaboration partners and other things. Then we negotiate after scouting for them, and the licensing and the commercialization part comes in. That's where the revenue and other things will start flowing. So these are the basically 8-step approach that usually happens. But this is these are not usually linear, but this is the basic steps that usually follow. Like in technology, we do understand that there is something called technology readiness level, right? So there is TRL1, and then they reach on to TRL9 being designed by NASA. In a similar way, there is something called IP sophistication levels also, where we measure it from intellectual property sophistication 1 to IP 9. We look at how the recognition of intellectual property value is important. Then we go on to say around your intellectual property level 7. Then we say whether it is a targeted development or how is it an entire organization is growing it. If I look at it in terms of university, is it increasing my number of admissions, is it increasing my number of grants, number of publications, the quality? I'm pretty sure the quality of research is also very important for organizations like yours, as to what is the H-index that I'm following, how strong is my research, what is the kind of research that I'm coming out, what are the kind of researchers who are actually moving out of the university after the PhD and postdoc and other things. What is the kind of things that we are looking at? So IP is just not about filing for an organization, but it is also about what level am I actually taking it to make my entire organization very, very valuable. So this route from idea to giving up a proper structure is not at all linear. Okay, it's actually complex. And that is where the name of a company comes up as Naughty. The word naughty comes from not, K-N-O-T, coming from the word complexity. Okay, and that's how we actually thought about it. And then we realized this in the entire journey. It's way more difficult than it actually goes in theory. I'll give you an example of how universities are to give a foreign university example. Due to lack of time, I could not get in the Indian university revenue generated. So let us look at the foreign university. The foreign universities are actually earning more money from their entire, just from royalty, more money than entire grants of your CSIR put together. The recent study was showing, say, around 200 crores of money is available for research and development and other things by CSIR for the universities and other things. These people are earning way more money from that. It primarily happens because their research is market oriented, and post their commercialization and everything and success, these are the same people who come out of companies and start these startups, or these are the same kind of people who are actually sitting on negotiation tables at your vaccines and other things at United Nations rounds and other things. And our people are not having that experience as to what it is. And that is why our negotiations had been more weak, our patent portfolios had been much weaker, and we can see its trickle down effect in other things. So people will come up and say, hey, I haven't seen people actually making money, but this time if you have filed your taxes, you'll realize that in section 80 RRB, there is an income from patents and inventions has been specifically been made by the income tax office. So people are making their money. Recently, we have sold one of the trademarks for 1.5 crore to a European company. We are looking at some of the battery-based technologies to be cross-licensed there. So there is a provision, and Government of India is recognizing that the money is coming in. That is where they added a specific section, section 80 RRB. I took a screenshot of it, though it is not clear as to what is happening. So that is about us, and the objective of our company is basically IP analytics. A lot of companies do it, but our IP analytics is to identify the best of the opportunities, or else usually patents do die. Filing a patent is not at all difficult. Coming up with an idea is not difficult, but can we identify the ideas which are very, very important for me, that I find it very high potential for commercialization of these things? Then we look at IP strategies. There are a lot of strategies in IP, but let us look at the strategies which could actually help you commercialize much faster. And there is a question of, can there be an accelerated value creation? Is very, very important. Value creation is a very different concept when we talk about IP, but the question is, can we accelerate that value? Because the researcher has 2 to 3 years of time, the university has limited funds, so it becomes very, very important to plan in those entire thing. Okay, then there is an innovation management, because it has to primarily go with how your problem solving framework goes on. If the problem solving framework is not clear, the management of what is available itself becomes very, very difficult. Then there is a portfolio creation. By portfolio, we mean by generating a lot of patents. Then we have IP and technology commercialization, and then we do our awareness on sensitization of IP to give direction to basically give your research and development. Okay, if we get another opportunity, we would love to talk about how to invent. Can we invent? Can we come up with new ideas? Are there available frameworks and other things? And we can talk about those issues. So that is about us, about the Naughty IP and the commercialization per se. I'd be interested if people have questions. It'll make it much more easier for us to answer, because else it will remain quite a theoretical presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashutosh and Prasanna.
Yes.
Yes, we have exceeded a bit of time, and I would like to keep another 10 minutes for, let's say, questions. If not,
Sure.
we will have questions through feedback as well. But
Yes.
undoubtedly, of all the IP lectures that I have attended, I can definitely say that this was the most applicable one, very fundamental, because you touched onto the real life examples and how from Velcro to eggshell container, it's really nice, and we could
Yes.
relate to many more things in detail. And the one thing that I specifically understood is the biggest mistake that we make is we try to find out what is an innovation that I can do, rather than looking at what is the problem in the market, what solutions are needed, and then try to propose an innovation that I need to do. So I think
Indeed,
that
indeed.
gap you have really bridged very nicely. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
We'll open the session for questions, if any. Please raise your hand on the Google platform and we can take up the questions. So in the meantime, I'll post the first question so that the discussion starts. Okay. So recently we have acquired a patent on a nanomaterial design, and Ashutosh was our patent attorney. He helped us very much with a successful award of the patent. So this is a process patent of a nanomaterial at a laboratory scale. All right. So we're talking about few grams. And then we know that within this gram limit, our process cost us around 500 rupees compared to the market value of it, which is selling right now at 5,000 rupees for the same gram.
Okay.
So I understand the market here. I understand the importance of the invention. But what is lacking right now is two things. One is the scale up, because
Yes.
I need to scale it up to a larger quantity of kilos before I can approach a company for commercialization, or can I still at this level itself try to find a valuation for my product and commercialize it with some company? How do I bridge this gap now?
Okay, there are a couple of few things. One is the TRL level, what you're standing at. Imagine your TRL level is say around 7 and above. Okay, and imagine you have already proven methods and other things, which could also be, if you can go around and test it at a market scale, at least one pilot. You need to have at least one pilot study. After that, it becomes very, very easy for you to go around. And the best part is if you can have a spin out of this, that will be a much better, because now you're looking at an industrial scale selling it. So investors would be very interested in putting their money because it's a proven technology. And imagine if it works on the industrial scale to at least one pilot, then it's very easy for you to go for from a seed fund to from Series A to at least Series C in say about 1.5 to 2 years. That's what I can say.
So if I understand the concept of scale up, let's say because I am limited in upscaling process, can I have an investor who will help me in upscaling and then we jointly commercialize it with another industry? Is that what you're saying?
So there are two things. If you yourself cannot upscale it, see, we are a land of startups. India had been a land of startup, but India had not been, let's say the golden age. We had not been a country of scale up. That's because that is where the entire problem of scaling up comes up. This very thought of scaling up comes up from that. How do I scale up? Investors don't help you in scale up. They just give you money. They want returns, right? That's very, very important to understand. But you need to form a team. You need to have people in place, and you also need to have your a lot more patents in this area so that you can have a hold over it for commercializing and other things. So it is necessary that you have a team, and they will help you in structuring your scale-up process. Looking at that, the investor puts in money. It cannot be just an idea or just a product that you have created. Okay, so they are like, okay, you could do it much faster, much cheaper, and everything else. Great. You need to show them a larger picture as to how it works, and then becomes much more easier.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from faculties and students? Yeah, Samantha has raised her hand. Samantha, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So my question is, at what stage of an invention should one file a patent?
The moment you get an idea.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'll give you one more thing. At what stage? One is the moment you get an idea, because I want to break one myth here. There is nothing called the greatest idea ever. Okay, I'll give you an example because nobody is from law background, I guess. So somebody is from the law background. I don't want him to answer this question. I just want to ask, what does Article 222 of the Constitution and Negotiable Instrument Act, Section 139 talk about? Anybody? See, nobody knows about it. But if I ask you about nanotechnology, you'll answer me within a fraction of a second, right? You'll answer it in no time. Samantha might be from one of the departments. If I ask her from any of the questions, she will answer me in a fraction of a second. So it tells us that human mind can only do hash value. So it can, whatever is the past data, you can do permutation combinations and come up with something new. So you are assuming that the idea that you thought only you thought. Somebody might have thought 5 days ago. You don't know. So that's why do not wait for the best time to file your patent. So its best time is to just file it, and file a provisional patent. And you got 12 months before you file your complete patent. That is, you need to give the nut and bolts and every single detail of your patent. So there is no right time. And secondly, first file the broad patent, the main patent of it. Whatever are the new improvements that you keep doing, keep on filing the patent of editions for the same patent. So that creates you a large bunch of your ideas and it protects your main core idea. So the best time is to the moment you get your idea. There is no other time.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
I'll just give one thing. People might publish your idea and they say, okay, let me create a prior art against your idea. So they will not let you even take your patent. So the moment you get an idea, immediately file it.
Nice. Because we are researchers here, mostly chemistry, and we are very good at publications. And that is how we look at it, that we need to provide the proof first in order to publish it. So, but like you said, the idea is the core part. We can go for the provisional and then generate the proof over a period of time and submit it substantially.
Yeah. So Pranay, the patent prosecution path right now very well. Yeah, and the the timelines, your own project timelines as well. So
3 years.
Nothing beats that. So I think it's all about respecting the time there, because since we are talking about commercialization, it also has to look at future applications, whatever can be developed in that course of time. Maybe 1 patent, 2 patents, 3 patents, 4 patents. You don't know. Right?
File as many as possible if you want to have a large commercialization.
Yeah. To be at that, how do I put it? To be at that hand, you have that hand, right? Upper hand at the technology transactions.
Negotiation. Let's take on a negotiation table.
Yeah.
You have your larger stuff. That's what makes the negotiations much easier.
True.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah. Any other question?
Akshay Salkar.
So my question is,
Yes.
are there ways to know the future applications of a technology that is already developed by me?
Yes. So there are ways. So you actually have to understand what is it called. One is freedom to operate. Freedom to operate goes around all domains and tries to help you out in your entire thing. Landscape is primarily very, very important for you to look at it. The third part of it is when you do what is called as your patent can be applied to other things. How can we actually bridge it in terms of value derivation for a common man? I'll give you an example. You make a dust repellent chemical, okay? Immediately the thing comes out, okay, I'll put it on a car, I'll put it on a solar panel, I'll put it something else. I think one of the best people who would love to buy your product is probably an airline industry would love to buy it. And the people who are in the agricultural sector would love to buy it. And especially the pollution right now, one of the studies says, try to remove it and it helps out. And at that time, it tells you what am I looking at. And especially this is a problem that arises. That is why you need an outsider to come and sit with you to map you out what are the possible applications. Because you people have been doing study on your technology. You're always pulled into that. You're unable to look at it beyond that. So that's why you need consultants who can basically come up and do the other things.
So looking beyond your own domain is also what we believe that one should practice as researcher. Interdisciplinary approach, there is nothing that beats it. May it be nanotech combined with AI, you never know. You can just imagine the possibility of the applications that could be developed, right? AI being in the
Cross domain application patents are very valuable. Very
Yeah.
valuable.
yeah.
Very true.
Ideas are very
Dr. Bidan, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the nice presentation. Actually, I come from industry, so
Yes.
basically I know what you actually went out through.
Yes.
I liked your data which captured the publications like 1.70 lakhs to 10,000 or something, right? You
Yes, sir.
mentioned patents
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Actually, I'm not surprised with that data. I have two questions on that. The first is, do you have the data for US? Say, for example, the US or Europe, do you have data? Is it different from this?
Okay. So we do divide this data given for US and Europe in a different way. Okay, there is a reason why we have been doing it in terms of how public funded research versus privately funded research. So when we divide it into how a private funded research is concerned, the output is not a burden on the entire society that we are looking at because the taxpayer money is there. But here, specifically in cases of India, we are looking at public funded because that's where the maximum money of CSIR comes in. So this year in 2021, the allotted fund for research alone was close to around 202 crores. That is what it had been there. So that is how we actually divided it, and we found that there had been output-wise they had been more successful. But I agree with you in terms of the output given by Chinese in the past decade had been phenomenal. They have surpassed everything.
Yeah, just a second question to that was like the data that industry publishes, especially the R&D industry, you would not see any publications coming out of it because they are only interested in the commercialization part. Most of the time,
Yes.
I would say that.
Yes.
So if you look at the similar data profiling of the industries like R&Ds or the multinational companies which are only interested in getting new products to market, you would see that they have hundreds of patents. The number may be lesser than publication, but they would like to cover all of the gaps
Yes.
so that nobody else enters in the market.
Yes.
Is that true, right?
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
I'll give you one example. I've been working for one of the banks called Wells Fargo Bank. It's an international bank. Those people, we had been there and we had been generating ideas for them out of the domains and other things. We had been generating a lot of stuff for them. We generated ideas which are nowhere related to banking and insurance. They are like, we want all patents. You think, you generate ideas, you come up with everything else, use your trust methodologies, come up with inventor solutions. We want all. And that they used to sell it to their HNI clients.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good.
Dr. Kiran?
Yes, I have two situations which I would like to ask you.
Please.
The first one is like, suppose we are having some idea. A person is having an idea. He's an inventor. He goes for filing a patent in India. So by the time he files a patent, and suppose his idea is highly commercializable, and then what happens is in that process, meanwhile, somebody else comes up with the same thing and it is getting commercialized in some other country, like for example, US or in Europe. What happens in that case?
Okay. I think Ashutosh touched about it briefly. So one is your patents are territorial in nature. If you filed it in India, you get protection only in India. You will not get it in other country. You just cannot stop. Even Bangladesh, you cannot stop. Even Sri Lanka, which is going into bankruptcy now, you cannot even stop them. That's why it is necessary to file it across the world, for your patents and other things. But that has to be thought strategically because patents are a really costly affair. So that is very important. But you talked about, you came up with an idea, somebody else came up with the same idea. Theoretically, it is very, very difficult until and unless they're ready or work to come up with the similar stuff. Plagiarism checks are in terms of ideation is concerned, it's very difficult to have similar probability. So, you cannot stop anybody outside.
Yeah, I just have a sub question to this,
Yes.
just to understand. If I have patented an invention in India, okay, and I've disclosed it as a prior art now, isn't it? So if somebody else is patenting the same
Correct.
thing in another country, that is
It
a
won't.
conflict, right?
That won't get
You
granted.
answered your own question. Yes.
Yeah. Correct.
Perfect.
shouldn't be that easy also. I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. That's why we say that the moment you get an idea, just go ahead and file.
Go ahead and file it. Don't wait for search and other things. Just file it. Killing of an idea, we can do it little later.
Don't need to prove anything in the provisional.
Yeah.
And
It's
secondly,
just
you
that-
need not provide any of the proof of these things to the patent office.
Yeah.
Unless you say in 1 second I will reach Pluto and all kind of stuff. People in your own field are sitting there. They do understand what you have talked about. So it becomes much more easier.
True. Now, just to connect Dr. Bidhan's question here, the foreign universities are doing excellent when it comes to getting the patents as well as commercializing it. Indian industries are doing quite well. Like he said, they do not publish, but they patent. But because there's a value associated with it in terms of their incentives, in terms of their benefits or promotions, everything. Where do you think is the Indian university or the academia section lacks here? How do we change this scenario?
See, a couple of things. Prasanna, just two
Yes,
two
please,
points,
please.
and then you can take it ahead. What we see prominently is that the lack of institutional mechanisms to deploy all of this at one go, which also includes having a prominent IP policy. Nobody in the, very few institutions, to name a few, IIT Bombay and Manipal, people, they have IP policies in place. IP policy takes care of much of this part, like how the inventors will be incentivized, what is going to be the royalty distribution, how is going to be the, if there is a startup coming out of Goa University, how is going to be their fair share in the startup, right? Who all will be working in that? Who are the contributors? So there is a difference between inventors and contributors and mentors and advisors, right? All of it can be part of the startup, or they may choose, right, how to go ahead about it. So there are two things that are not happening right now in India. One is the lack of institutional mechanism that I told. The other is universities don't really look at commercialization as a revenue generation activity per se. They just, this is a very brief observation. I'll need to study enough to consolidate it. But on one hand, you receive money, you receive funds for the research. What gets out of it is very less amount. What you earn out of that is very less amount from commercialization, right? And that's where the role of technology licensing officers come in place, which again links to the IP policy, because IP policy will define everything as a mechanism for an university, right? So the prominent point is IP policy needs to be in place.
I completely agree with your point, and this gap still exists.
Yeah.
Like we have reached a stage where we now support filing patents. We do get money for research, and then it is looked upon more as an academia research, okay, rather than commercializing it. And there is nothing connecting the two in the sense in the policy where a faculty or a researcher who is also a teacher is encouraged to commercialize something, to become an entrepreneur. With the new NEP, these things are coming in, and hopefully those bridges will be gapped. The gaps will be bridged very soon. All right.
I have a few more points to add what Ashutosh, because he worked on Venture Center and everything else. He had been seeing universities after universities. One thing is the universities are not working on their own theme. They literally don't know the kind of theme that they have. I work on A, B, C, D sectors. That's it. And a 5-year, 10-year plan, and you'll see results coming in. That's just not there. Second is there is no strategy which is to be put in. Strategy consultants are not being connected. For strategy too, they bring in the academic people and everything else. That becomes a big problem. The fourth part is silos. Everybody is working in their own silos setting, and nobody wants to talk to other persons. And I don't want to give the examples of the names of the universities, but we have seen in the central universities to the best of the universities, the researcher itself does not talk to the other researcher in the same department. And we are seeing duplication of research happening, and they are applying grants and they're doing everything else. One final observation I will make as a lawyer, not to be taken in any other sense, but we had been too socialist in our approaches towards everything else. Our constitution made it socialist, and at least our approach should be socio-capital. And then we will start looking at our entire work time that we are giving to the research institutions to make real money. And unfortunately, in this country, we are unable to appreciate a word called wealth. We just hate rich people. Anybody makes wealth, we start doing everything else. But at the end of the day, we ask, we want everything to change.
Yeah. So thank you. There is one question from a participant, Dr. Rakesh Brahmankar. He wants to know how to apply patenting of folklore medicine.
Okay. Folklore medicines I'll give you a very simple example. Most of the people who come up and say the folklore medicines cannot be patented. I'll give you an example. Turmeric is a folklore medicine, right? Take out curcumin outside it, and then you do whatever magic you want. That's where the patent is.
Yeah.
That's the simplest example that folklore medicines can be. Take in help of an outsider to look at in your entire stuff, and you will, in 5 to 10 years, you'll realize that your university has gone leaps and bounds ahead. There is no magic to this, but there is a method in this madness.
Sure. Indeed. I hope that we can have a second session sometime later where you can help us in identifying innovations. And
Definitely.
COVID situation,
called Theory of Innovative Problem Solving and Design for
exactly. I think a session is very much needed on that. That is where the key lies, the first step. So
yes.
We have exceeded a lot of time, and so to finish up the session, I'll now hand over the stage to Dr. Kiran Davaskar, to propose the formal vote of thanks. Thank you, Ashutosh. Thank you.
Thanks, Pranay.
Dr. Kiran, you're muted. Yeah, please unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Dr. Pranay, for giving me this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to the distinguished speakers of today's webinar on identifying, protecting, and commercializing our ideas and innovation. I must say it was indeed a very fruitful talk where our distinguished directors of Naughty IP shared their expert opinions, of course, which has come out of their years of in-depth experience in this field. We all appreciate the insight, patenting process, and knowledge you shared with us. I'm sure the entire students, faculties, and the research fraternities who have attended this talk has been benefited with the information you shared on this topic. So on behalf of all, I thank Sri Ashutosh Prachand and Sri Prasanna Bhagwan for enlightening us to understand the significance of patenting and its commercialization. Thank you so much. It was indeed a pleasure to have you at the beginning of this year and have a wonderful start to the SES seminar activities. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Yeah, with this, I would also like to extend my gratitude to the Dean of School of Chemical Sciences, Professor Verekar, and the Vice Dean Research, Professor Duri, the Director of IQA, for their encouragement to conduct this event. Special thanks to the convener of this event, Dr. Pranay Morajkar, for his enthusiastic lead and systematic planning of this event. I am also grateful to all the committee members, right from Dr. Shrikant, Anjani, Dr. Rupesh, Dr. Prachi, and a very special thank to Mr. Vishnu Chari for his technical inputs and the moderation of this event. Lastly, thank you all the participants for your patience listening. The feedback form link is shared in the chat link. Please fill it up and get your e-certificate. And now I request all the participants to kindly on their camera for some time so that we can have a group photograph of this particular event. Please do so.
Thanks, Prasanna and Ashutosh. Okay, we'd like to have you again, as Dr. Pranay has rightly said. Okay, so
yeah, definitely.
So happy New Year to you all, and also see you soon.
Okay. Same to you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
I request all of you please on your cameras so that we can have a group photo. Dr. Shrikant, Seneca, Samantha, Namrata, Parab sir, Kedar, Anjani. Please, yeah. Right? Yes, sir, of course. Vishnu. Yeah,
Dr.
Vishnu.
Pranay, have one photo of this, for us, for the
Amarja.
presentation sometime, right?
Amarja, Shrikant,
Yeah, sir.
Dr. Shrikant, Kedar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please
Just
take-
on your on your cameras, please. Yeah.
Vishnu, please take the photo, okay?
Yeah, Vishnu, please.
Thank you, Vishnu, and thank you, Kiran. Hope to see you all soon again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you. Bye.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Thank you
ahead.
all.
Thanks.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great day.
Bye.